Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to our presentation today. Before we kick it off, just a couple of housekeeping items. This session will be recorded and we'll share the recording after. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, just find that Q&A box at the bottom of your panel and submit those questions and we'll get those answered. And without further ado, here are our presenters.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this morning. I know we have some people still filtering in, so I'll do some quick intros. You may notice I'm wearing some shades this morning. I have a bit of an eye infection, so I'm saving you from the gory details of my eye infection. My name's Ben. I'm on the developer relations team here at Teleport, and I'm really excited to have Pablo today from Auth0. Pablo, you want to just give a quick introduction on yourself and background on Auth0?
Sure, thank you, Ben. I'm Pablo. I'm in software engineering at Auth0, mostly specialized on web applications. I have joined Auth0 exactly 6 years ago. Today is my 6th anniversary in the company. I originally joined as a front-end developer, where the company was really small, around 27 employees. Today we are over 1,000. I'm now working as an engineering manager on the private cloud applications and tools team.
Cool, thank you. That was great. You covered all my first introductions. So can you just tell people who sort of new, like, what is Auth0 and what does it do?
Sure. So Auth0 is an easy to implement yet adaptable authentication and authorization platform. To put it in simple words, we basically make your login box awesome by following industry standards like Auth0, SAML, with a super big developer experience and a really simple to use interface, as well as SDKs and tools for get your application secure.
All right, that's great. And so just a quick introduction for people who are new for Teleport as well. Teleport is a unified access plane that provides secure and audited access to your infrastructure, whether that is servers, applications, and we seem to have databases coming soon. So, you know, that's kind of a good segue into sort of what is Auth0's use case. I think you have like a pretty interesting use case of how you use Teleport. Do you think you're able to describe that?
Yeah, sure. So Auth0 private cloud offering consists on isolated environments for the Auth0 product. So each of our customer gets a full dedicated Auth0 deployment. That means its own virtual machines, its own databases, load balancers, and more of these customers of the Auth0 private cloud are high-profile customers with very specific and sometimes unique regulatory concerns, such as the data should not leave a certain region, only or only a previously specified set of people can access to this environment. Audit trails might live for a particular period of time, and particular compliance needs as well, such as PCI. So yeah, we use Teleport to provide support to our customers' environment. There is a team in Auth0, which is the private cloud operators team, who basically are the ones that interact with our customers' infrastructure. And Teleport is a tool that we use there to allow them access to the virtual machines that are part of the of a particular Auth0 cluster.
So to sort of explain this kind of back to you, you have Auth0 as a software as a service offering, but you also have an on-premise solution for like financial institutions or healthcare providers, or like people have very strict requirements.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. And so when you deploy Auth0 into their environments, I guess they're like, it could be on Meta or it could be their own like Amazon account. Mm-hmm. What do you use Teleport for in that sort of setup, and how do you use it to support those customers?
So let's talk. We have on high level, we have two different offerings when we talk about private cloud, and then those are divided on more. But basically, we divide it on the Auth0 managed ones and the customer hosted ones. So it's a managed service. We control the entire CentOS infrastructure. It only changes who owns that piece of infrastructure. In one case is Auth0, in the other case is the customer. So all the infrastructure lives in their side of the things, like their own AWS account, let's say. And we use Teleport to manage access of the Auth0 employees, part of this team of private cloud operators, to being able to get SSH access basically to each virtual machine that is part of this cluster, to be able to provide support, especially, let's say, on unexpected scenarios. So that's via Teleport, we make sure that only the people that are supposed to access the environment is the one that has access, basically.
So actually, I did draw a kind of diagram. So I think one of the features that you leverage is a feature that we called trusted clusters in the world of Teleport. And so let me just go to this diagram for people who are sort of new to the Teleport ecosystem. So when you run Teleport, this can run as one service or in like high availability, but it provides the certificate authority and the audit log for all access and activity on the various hosts. So if a developer was to come in, you sort of log in through the Teleport proxy, you get your certificate for the day. And I guess one of the foundations of Teleport is it enforces short-lived certificates as opposed to using public private keys. And then once they've logged into these machines, everything else kind of goes through an audit log and sort of how it works. But you can extend this from going from one Teleport cluster to also sort of linking these together. So I think we talked a bit about this before. So I think you said, so when your engineers come in, they sort of go through your sort of centralized cluster and then they can like access this customer's infrastructure. Is that right? Yep,
exactly. We, the Auth0 employees can access inside the Auth0 private network. We can access to our main Teleport cluster, which has access via the trusted cluster feature that you mentioned to every to every customer environment.
And so, and does customer A have any control over who can access this infrastructure?
In some cases, they are allowed to enable or disable the access connection. That's basically implemented via a firewall rule on their side, that via a switch on our own interface they can turn on and off. But on the most majority, we manage the entire infrastructure.
Okay, so yeah, so these are all kind of tunnels, and so I think I have one cluster here that sort of shows the experience of logging into trusted clusters, where which we just have this sort of simple switch. So for like an on-support person, I guess this is relatively easy for them to like access and sort of access that infrastructure that they need to access.
Right. In our case, that cluster list is basically all of our customers.
All your customers, yeah.
On their own regions, and then you will see all the virtual machines that are part of that particular environment, and you can connect through it. Again, we have this web interface, and most of the time via the DSH tool, which is the Teleport CLI for connecting to the nodes.
Yeah. Great. Well, I'll stop sharing. Just kind of the architecture. So can you tell me a little bit about how you were doing this before at Auth0? Before you used Teleport?
Before Teleport, you mean?
Yeah.
So before Teleport, we didn't have standardized way to access the environment. As I mentioned at the beginning, the majority of private cloud customers has the very own concerns in terms of who can access to the environment. Some has their own particular rules, and we basically adapt to them. That went to a nightmare of basically having a lot of ways to access environments. So some of them by, I don't know, from jump hosts to sharing a screen via a WebEx session, and someone sharing their desktop with a PuTTY client and then get access through SSH, which if you haven't the pleasure to experience that, consider yourself lucky. It was a terrible nightmare. But most important there, beyond that, in terms of the supporting experience was painful, because let's say you wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning with an unexpected issue and you need to access to the environment. You first need to learn how to access to that environment for that particular customer. So basically with Teleport, we standardized that. That is actually our default, our default and unique offering for access to the environments, and we were able to gather all the different requirements we have in terms of compliance, audits, etc., in a single tool. So now it's extremely easy, because if you don't know the cluster you need to connect to, you can easily go to the web interface, get all the lists, and just get a couple of clicks and probably gather the cluster name to then connect via TSH. But on most cases, we have all that information stored. So if you need to access to a particular customer, you just got the TSH command you need to use to connect to it.
Yeah. And so these end sort of engineers accessing Teleport, I guess this gets a bit meta, but they use Auth0 to log into Teleport.
Yes, we love dog fooding. So we are heavy users of Auth0 for almost every of our need for authentication and authorization, and that includes Teleport. Mm-hmm. So the way it works, Teleport supports OIDC, and Auth0 happens to be an OIDC provider. So we just hook Auth0 to Teleport, and from there, on the Auth0 world, we are able to customize the authentication and authorization experience and requirements entirely from our side. That means, this is part of the Auth0 feature. We can enable multi-factor authentication just by clicking a button, add our own rules to the authentication process. So in this case in particular, we have different roles, mostly mapped to the different regions our customers are. So when a new employee is onboarded and they need to access these environments, inside the Auth0 interface, we assign this person to a particular role. That role that gets mapped into, I don't remember the name you use. I think it's roles as well.
Yeah, we call it roles too. Yeah,
it's mapped to roles in Teleport cluster, and from there we manage the whole authorization process.
And so, what does that mean for like onboarding of new customers or new employees coming on board?
Okay, I can answer both for customers and employees. For customers, for both, that's extremely easy. For customer, the process, basically, we have all the setup of our environments automated via our own internal tooling. So this tool, basically, you can provide the different inputs that describe a customer environment. This will set up the whole environment and the Teleport cluster as well. And it will issue a token that will be automatically stored in our secrets management tool. And then I think we have a tool on the Teleport side that reads that token and add the environment to.
And this is for the trusted cluster relationship.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's happened today. That happens entirely automatically when you set up a new customer. It's just a yes/no option we have in our internal tooling if we want to add that trust cluster connection. And for employees, when you get onboarded to Auth0, one of the first tasks you have in your onboarding list is to require specific access to the team you are on. So as part of that onboarding process, you will be added via the Auth0 itself interface on our authorization offering. You will be added to the particular group that will give you access to the required customers environment section.
Yeah. Cool. I think that. So, do you ever come up with any compliance issues or sort of requests from like vendors asking for like compliance questionnaires? Like, how does Teleport help you sort of navigate that sort of process?
Yeah. Well. All the time, I think. Every time we got a new customer, compliance in some form of other is certainly a concern. We particularly audit for PCI as a unique offering for our environments. So that's where most of the questions about are. The way Teleport has helped us is first is provide us a reproducible and well-detailed process for onboarding and offboarding employees that have access to the environment, which is extremely helpful. It's also allow us to provide audit trails of everything you do on the nodes. I don't remember if you mentioned this when talking about Teleport, but everything that happens on a Teleport sessions gets recorded on a JSON format, and you can also reproduce via TSH Play or as well as the web UI, and you get all what happened on that session gets deployed, and you know who was the person that performed those operations. So yeah, that has been extremely helpful.
How do you use those session replays? Do you use them sort of regularly to sort of learn about what happened during a support session, or do you just use it for a case if there's like an audit?
I don't think I can say we use it regularly, but it was extremely helpful sometimes to understand when something goes wrong. I don't know, we are unsure that what was happened, maybe some process was not, or it seemed that some process was not followed exactly.
The playbook wasn't followed quite exactly, yeah. And I guess you can sometimes make a mistake and you can probably catch that.
Yeah. So that allowed being able to reproduce the session was extremely helpful to understand, this here, what happened, this person, I don't know, didn't write this file or delete this thing, whatever. I don't recall an exact example right now to give you, but it certainly was extremely helpful to understand what's happening. As I say, when you wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning with a production issue, being able to understand how you got to that situation is extremely helpful for sure.
Yeah, I bet. And I'm sure not having to go through all these different, sort of snowflake of environments and makes it much quicker to, I guess, also fix the customers' end problem as well. So probably keeps everyone happy. Happy engineers, happy customers.
Yeah, 100% there.
So do you have any advice for anyone in our audience thinking of, using Teleport, of things they should do or not to do when setting it up or considering it as a tool?
I don't think I have a particular piece of advice. I think if I have to tell it to myself, I will say, make sure to read the Teleport documentation really careful. It's certainly great and very well detailed. And I think you cover a lot of different scenarios with regards to how to implement the architecture, how to manage authentication. In our case, we use Auth0, but you can use whatever OIDC, and if I'm not mistaken, you also support SAML, which also works with Auth0, by the way. But yeah, you can and you can use any provider there, and your documentation actually covers all of those all of those scenarios. So I think that will be my main piece of advice. And then not exactly related strictly to Teleport, but as a general overview, but Teleport certainly help us there, is to have all of this standardized. I mean, have a unique way to set up not only Teleport, but the entire the entire environment, and just have one single way to access to the environments to every customer was from much help, especially, as I say, when dealing with unexpected issues. You don't need to care, or you don't need to be worried about, how I will access to this environment. Should I follow this guy, or should I follow this other guy? No, it's all in Teleport, and that's extremely helpful.
Yeah. So from sort of your team that you've rolled out Teleport, do you have anything that they like or don't like?
I think it's really simple to use. I think your CLI via SSH and the web interface complement each other very well. I can find information about the cluster I have access via the web AUI really quick, and then proceed using TSH, which most of the time is more reliable and enjoyable, since once you are connected, the experience is pretty much the same than doing an SSH, a plain SSH to an environment. So that's certainly great. You don't need to relearn how to do things when using Teleport.
Great. Well, I think that kind of comes to the end of our sort of standard flow of questions. Thanks everyone for joining today. Thanks, Pablo. I know Anna, do you have any questions have popped in?
It looks like no questions at the moment.
Oh, we have some questions coming in now.
There is one now.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, please put them in the Q&A.
There is a question.
Guy says, could you provide some information regarding migrating from an existing solution, SSH to TSH? I can take this one first, and then
I can give our experience there as well.
Yeah. So Teleport can run in a few different modes. So you can actually run Teleport as a open SSH certificate authority. And so you can use the same tools that you were using. You can still use OpenSSH. We have a page on our docs about using Teleport in this sort of OpenSSH mode, and for recording proxy. And you just use the same tooling. There is like a little bit of, it is a little complicated to go from sort of SSH public private keys to SSH certificates. And Teleport sort of builds upon this idea of OpenSSH certificates, but it deals with things such as like enrollment and rotation, and it makes that all like, we will have the best practices, and it makes that much smoother. So if you were to go and you don't have a legacy reason for it, it's probably better to go straight for using pure Teleport daemon instead of using our OpenSSH integration. But Pablo, why don't you give your opinion on SSH to TSH?
Mm-hmm. I think that you just said is completely great. One particular take we took when the migration was happening, when we had some customers on their own solution, let's say, and new customers were onboarding fully on Teleport, so that was no brain. We still have other customers using some old method. For some of them, the migration happens gradually. There was no way around that. For others, something we did was we already had jam hosts to get to these customers. So we basically add the jam host itself as part of the Teleport cluster. So via Teleport, you connect to the jam host, and then you can connect to those customers. And we get all the benefits from Teleport there, like the audit session, the access management, etc. And then we proceed gradually until we fully migrate all the customers we had at that time.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. So we have another one, which is how can non-human services accounts managed be handled? So CI flows, Terraform, Ansible. There's a few options for this. We recommend also trying to using short-lived certificates for these sort of robot accounts. So you would create sort of like a local user, and then we have a tcodl command for exporting the certificate authority. And so, if your Jenkins only uses OpenSSH, you can export that certificate, but you can give it a longer TTL. So you could set up a process that, or you could even do this like every CI run, but you could set up that Jenkins only has a certificate for that one day or one CI run. And then you have a process that always gets like new certificates. And that also sort of helps these like, supply chain CI/CD kind of hacks, in which I guess the industry is moving away from, giving a really long certificate to your Jenkins, because that's also a vulnerable point. For Terraform and Ansible, we have Terraform scripts for configuring your teleport infrastructure. We are also working on a Terraform provider, so you'll be able to create the roles and users as part of like the setup process. And hopefully that covers it. I don't know if you have any other experience for these sort of robotic users and service accounts, Pablo.
We went through both tools. Actually, we initially started using Ansible playbooks to not only set up the main teleport cluster and each of the trusted cluster, but also to manage the adding the trusted cluster to our main cluster. So basically, we have playbooks in Ansible that perform that operation. At the beginning, we started via bash scripts, basically. So when you create a new environment, you need to run a particular script that our team provided to the operators to get the token, and then we added that token into our playbooks, and it performed the action to add the configuration, and was something you need to do. And I don't remember exactly, but a brief period of time before the token actually expired. Today, we are using Terraform. I mentioned at the beginning, we are using our own internal tooling for performing all of this operation. This is extremely based on Terraform. It's user Terraform under the hooks. And we have some particular automations to issue the token, get the token added to our secret vault, and then we have a process that will read from that vault and add the token to the trusted cluster. And if for some reason the process failed, let's say, which is pretty unlikely, but if for some reason it failed, you just need to generate a new token and the whole process triggers again.
Yeah, that's a good answer. All right, is there any other open questions from the rest of the audience? We'll give you a couple of minutes to type. Well, as we sort of kind of wrap this up, Pablo, I know, always if you want like a shout out, or I know Auth0 is hiring. I don't know if you have anything you'd like to sort of pitch in the last couple of minutes.
Sure. So we're always hiring, basically. So if you are interested not only on authentication and authorization realm, but web development, private cloud, or cloud itself, please reach out to auth0.com/shops, or you can write me directly to my first name last name at auth0.com. We are a 100% distributed company. So I'm working from New York. I have colleagues working from other places of the US, as well as from Argentina, Spain, UK, India, etc. There is people around the globe. So yeah, feel free to go to auth0.com/shops, or write me an email if you want, and I can work with you on getting on the company.
And similar, if anyone has any more interest in sort of teleport, how you can use it in your organizational business, you can email sales@goteleport.com, or if you just want to email me directly, I'm just ben@goteleport.com, and I'll be happy to put you in touch with the right person. So I think that wraps everything up for this morning or afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks for attending today. I don't know if you have any last housekeeping, Anadelia?
No, everyone that attended today's session will be receiving the recording as well. So expect that in your inboxes later today. And thank you again for joining us.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Pablo. It was awesome.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
See
Bye.
ya.